this diskette, this symbol here, it's exactly this object without the sticker, obviously. I'm talking about this symbol. If you look closely, let's see if the camera will focus properly. This is the symbol of the diskette and has become like sort of a universal symbol, even if this diskette is basically no longer existing today. But the symbol has stayed there for some reason. Who knows who decided at some point. And I think the symbol will just stay there. And I'm quite positive. Let me just focus. I'm quite positive that many of, especially young people, have no idea what this is about. Especially the symbol, but even the signification, what actually the origin of the symbol. This is the ancestor of, I would say, of the CD-ROM. So you have those CDs that were both for music and for data computer. But perhaps also is the ancestor of the existing, we are in 2023, existing USB-K, memory USB stick or K. Before the USB Ks and before the CD-ROMs, this was how you would transfer and how you would just have portable data. These diskettes were used when I arrived in Canada, actually even earlier, I think, around, I was a fresh immigrant in Canada in the early 90s. These diskettes, I believe, at that point were start to be used on a large scale. But at the same time on the market, we still had, back in the early 90s, a bigger diskette. The size of this thing, it's 3.5 inches. I don't know how many centimeters that is. And the actual memory, so you notice there is sort of a flexible disk. I'm not sure what the material is, but it's flexible and it spins inside. I don't know if I can. No, perhaps it has sort of a lock mechanism, so it doesn't spin by itself. But this can stock the incredible amount of 1.4 megabytes. So about 1.5 megabyte, and that's because it was the HD version. But by the way, this thing also had sort of a sliding cover, metal sliding cover, which I did remove on this one, which would just slide when you insert it automatically. There is a spring to it, and then the computer can read the data. The cover was meant to just protect the surface here. So it was very small amount, and actually this was the third generation of floppy disk or diskette. Also, I think diskette sounds more like French, but the previous generations were I think 5.25 inches size, which would stock about 360 kilobytes, which is very tiny amount. Obviously, it's like a text file document today. And the previous of that one was 8 inches size, which I'm not really aware how many kilobytes would store. And I went to look on the Wikipedia just as of today to get some information about floppy disks. And to my surprise, which is something not really hard to actually understand, is there are still government organizations, and you will have a hard time to believe me, but I'll just tell you, go read Wikipedia for floppy disk. It seems that even the US, one of the US organizations that has to do with nuclear weapons, is still using computers, obviously very old computers, that use the 8 inches floppy disk. As of today, actually not, I think Wikipedia says it has been discontinued as of 2017, but it was very, very recently, until very recently, still using not this one, but the ancestor of this one, in 8 inches one that will just store a few kilobytes of data. For some of the computers at the American government of defense or something like this, for the nuclear weapon program. And The reason for that, it's actually very simple, is that it is impossible on those computers to steal information using a USB key. Those computers didn't have USB keys, which has been introduced, I think, someplace in the 90s. So that's why the US, some US, American organizations were still using floppy disk, even older ones than this one, even in very, very high security programs. So the employees, if there was a spy, Russian spy or something, could not steal a lot too much data from those computers. Interesting history, just give it a read in Wikipedia. And I was going to say also, finishing this video, is when I did arrive in Canada, I think in the late 90s, or perhaps, yes, somewhere in the 90s, we did start having personal computers with Windows. I don't remember exactly the first versions of Windows, but I do remember precisely that we had to went to a store and purchase the Windows software, and it came with these diskettes. And because obviously the Windows program was larger than one diskette, I do remember we had to we would buy a pack of these diskettes, which were obviously pre-recorded with Windows. And my memory tells me there were about 10 or 11 diskettes in that package. So at least one of the first generations of Windows, I don't remember the name, unfortunately, but you can find it on Wikipedia, would come in about 10 diskettes. So it would have been something like 10 megabytes with the whole software, Windows software, first generations, much, much smaller than today. And you will just pick up 10 diskettes like this and start installing it and insert the first diskette. There was diskette number 1 inserted, and after it copied the diskette, which will take several minutes. It was very slow to read 1 megabytes, those computers. When you finished installing the first diskette, you get a message on the screen saying insert now diskette number 2. So you grab the search for the diskette number 2, inserted for another few minutes, and that was the whole install process, quite long. And you could not pirate it or anything like this or download it online at that moment. I think back then we had modems that had a speed of 33.6 kilobytes per second. So that was very, very slow and sluggish. And it was also the beginning of the internet. Okay, so that's my story.